Hi, my name's Lucy. I'm a cybersecurity management student at Bournemouth University, and for my final year project, I created an approach for social engineering threat assessment and remediation for SMEs. Social engineering is to use psychological manipulation on a victim to gain confidential data, which is also known for PII, which stands for personally identifiable information. This can be names, addresses, and date of birth. It's the easiest attack vector, as you do not need to be technically minded to use it and manipulate someone. And spear phishing is more tailored to the individual, which has a higher success rate for attackers. The example to the right shows a phishing email. Digital footprint is a trace of data left after using the internet. This includes things such as PII records like names, addresses, and dates of birth, and the likes, shares, and comments on social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. There is a number of 4 different types of PII records that are needed for really highly successful social engineering attacks, as these can be tailored to the target and then attract them more and they believe it's real. Threat actors use this to build profiles and choose their targets for social engineering attacks. The more openly identifiable information there is online, then the more vulnerable you are to threats. The social engineering impacts to SMEs are as follows. SMEs are the most targeted than any other organisation in regard to social engineering attacks. 80% of cyber attacks to the UK SMEs were phishing in 2019. Attacks target anyone and everyone within an SME, such as from the receptionist to the founder of the business, as they don't think that they are worth targeting as they are a small business, so they feel like they don't need to have as many measures in place, but actually they are more vulnerable. SMEs need to prioritise security and training and awareness, and to focus on the human element. The top 3 social engineering threats to UK SMEs are phishing, impersonation, and quid pro quo. There are current approaches and solutions for SMEs. So, for example, there are Cyber Essentials and IASME governance. Cyber Essentials is an NCSC National Cyber Security Centre certification. It's affordable and it comes in 2 levels, Basic and Plus. Standard Cyber Essentials includes a self-assessment with questions to answer, and the Cyber Essentials Plus includes an on-site audit from a certification body. IASME governance is similar as it integrates the Cyber Essentials certification, GDPR, and it comes in 2 levels as well, self-assessed and an audit. They both share similar shortcomings, as they only focus on the technical controls, they ignore human element, they are not specific to the main cyber threat of small to medium-sized enterprises, they are not focused on the user or company's threat perception, and they provide a false sense of security where the user must continue to stay secure even after certification, and sometimes this has not been followed. This brings on to my final year project, Artifact. I have proposed an approach for social engineering threat assessment and remediation for SMEs, which has been demonstrated in a tool. It focuses around the human element of cybersecurity to fill a gap of current approaches and solutions, where it does not merely focus on technical controls. It's aimed at SMEs and their main threat, which is social engineering. It helps to define their current threat landscape in terms of social engineering threats, alongside their threat perception, so where they think they are to where they actually are in terms of social engineering threats, and focusing on the human element rather than the technical side. The approach has 4 key components. Number 1, the threat perception, which is done by cognitive interviews. Number 2, the digital footprint vulnerability assessment, which is carried out by an external open source intelligence tool of any choice. The threat levels of specific social engineering threats, which are based on the top 5, which are phishing, impersonation, quid pro quo, baiting and tailgating, and the overall threat status, which is measured by the overall threat levels, and the recommendations, which show dependent on the levels of the social engineering threats. So after the threat perception and the digital footprint assessment part have been done, this data then inputs into the tool and shows an output. And I will go through this a bit later when I demonstrate the tool. So here shows the threat model algorithm, which has been used for the digital footprint vulnerability assessment stage. The likelihood of the threats is based on a thorough literature review. So at the top, it shows level 1 to level 3. Level 1 is the lowest and level 3 is the highest. This is used to determine their threat perception and their current threat status, which is also their current threat landscape. And so below that is the algorithm to show the PI, if there's any PI records found and how many PI records are found. Once using the open source intelligence tool, so the average is calculated by adding up all of the PI records found divided by the amount of employees, and then the number will be inputted into the tool to then show the threat level and the threat status. So in a minute, I'm going to demo the CTAR tool. This was tested on 5 employees of a local SME, and I used cognitive interviews and an open source intelligence tool called ReconNG in order to collect the data. And I'm showing here that I'm using the tool to output the data, input and output the data that was provided through the testing. So here is the CTAR tool. The tool was to look at the whole idea of the human element of an organisation and to see how cyber aware they are. It is for assessing the company and their social engineering threats by giving the option of using third-party tools. This training and awareness process is to be carried out by the IT team or practitioner within or outside of the company. So I click on Start and it will take us to the first stage, which is threat perception. Whilst testing it on company A, they actually said that they thought their organisation is safe. So I click on that and it outputs that they think their organisation is level 3, which is the highest level. So it starts off at level 1, which is red, and they're dangerous, they're vulnerable to the threats. Then level 2, which is amber, the medium stage, and then level 3, which is the top stage. And then next takes us on to the digital footprint vulnerability, and whilst testing this on company A, this came to an average of 2.2 PII records for each employee of the organisation. And obviously this was tested on just 5 employees of the organisation, so this turned into 2.2 PII records between 5 people was actually considered as low. And then we'll go next to see the threat levels. So here shows the threat percentages and the threat levels. So luckily they are all green because the digital footprint vulnerability was low. So it shows here the social engineering threats, the threat level, and here is a percentage. This goes up in terms of 20%, and depending on how likely it is to occur, it will go from green to amber to red. So click on next, and this shows their actual threat status, which actually matches up to their original threat perception where they thought they were safe, they thought they were at the highest, and this is true. This has matched up to actually where they think they are at. And then here shows the recommendations for the organisation, as they do not have that many to implement at the minute because they are actually really high, they're really quite safe, they are doing all the right things at the moment to help them with staying secure and staying safe from their social engineering threats. And then I click on Home and this refreshes the whole tool where it can be started and used again. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.